Well, howdy guys and gals, welcome back to the Social Regressive. I just got back from a hog hunt down south with a couple of friends, and we had some real fun. The landowner took us out doing some scouting overnight. We were using a thermal scope to try to find some pigs out on his fields, and we actually didn't see anything that night. We found just tons of deer. We're talking about just sickening amounts of deer, over 200 in one night, easily. Just dotting the field. It was incredible. But what we were after were hogs, and so we got to sleep really late that night, woke up early, headed back out again, and we were kind of cruising around, driving down the roads, trying to find these. And let me point out some of the gear that we used. We're going to talk about the Scout AR. This is the rifle that I've really wanted to test, and this is the one that I was actually able to use on this hunt. Great rifle. I'm really pleased with it. We'll talk about some of the ups, some of the downs, but first I just wanted to talk about that hunting experience and some of the gear that I used here, because there's lots of backup stuff that I used to actually get out there and do the hunt with these guys. And first off, one of the things that I got to point out is some of the stuff I was wearing. I know that I don't talk about clothing very often, but I'm a big fan of certain things, especially when it gets muddy. These boots that I reviewed a couple months ago, these are the Redhead Voyager, and you can see that they are still caked in the mud that we had out there. These are waterproof boots. They are just fantastic. I did not have wet feet the entire trip. These worked out really well, and they were kind of nice and quiet stalking around out there. Yeah, wonderful boots, because when we were out, when we finally saw a hog pack or a hog herd, probably about, I think it was about 10 a.m. or so. They were about 550 yards out, as lazed by this also previously reviewed Nikon stabilized rangefinder. This is the Nikon Monarch 3000. I saw that they've just come out with a less expensive one that has a little bit less range. But this Monarch 3000 right here runs about 420 bucks or so, and worth every penny. This is so cool. You don't have to, really stabilize yourself in order to figure out your range. It has a gyro built in, so even with whatever little shake you're going to put into it, you're probably going to get a good range out of it. So yeah, we lazed our targets with this, and they came out to be about 550 yards away. And really all of us, for the most part, were shooting some of these kind of smaller, or at least not as good trajectory sort of guns for that kind of a long range shot. We had one guy with 7mm Magnum. That was the landowner. But the rest of us, we had ARs, either in 458 SOCOM or 223 in this case right here. But when we found them, we just jumped back in the truck and then boogied another like 4 miles to get back around behind them, and we kind of came down through some scrub in order to find the hogs. And one of the other kind of pieces of gear that I should point out on this hunt that worked out really well are these pants right here. These have been showing up in a couple of the videos that I've been doing. These are True Spec Expedition pants, 24/7 Expedition I think they're called. And these are phenomenally comfortable, just a little bit waterproof. They have kind of a durable water repellent sort of thing on there, so if you get a little mist, it's not going to get you wet or anything. But they have these nice stretchy panels, really comfy, and it's got a mag pouch in this special pocket right up here. Pretty cool. So yeah. And then guide gear base layer, I had a fleece on. It was a little cool in the morning. I'll tell you what though, once we started shooting, it sure warmed up fast. But we got up behind these hogs and started coming down through this scrub. And we're talking about tall grass. It was pretty marshy, a lot of thorns. And when we got to within about 120 yards, somewhere in there, we all fanned out and started opening fire. And either the 7mm Magnum or the 458 SOCOM took down that biggest pig, just bam, one shot. I don't think that sow had any time to move. That might have been the actual first shot that was fired. I was a little bit late to the party. I started shooting after they had started running left, and then they kind of came across this creek that was between us and then came up to the left. So Billy and I ran, and we continued firing on them. Now before I get too far, I would like to describe how the rifle itself functioned in this scenario. First off, it was easy to carry. This rifle is quite lightweight, even with the suppressor on it. Now if I take the suppressor off and if I take the optic off, this comes out to be, I think, about 6.5 pounds, pretty much neatly 6.5 pounds. And of course, no full magazine either. Once you start adding some things up, yeah, it gets a little heavier, but still, overall, very easy rifle to move around, to sling on the back. It just really isn't that much of a burden at all. It was easy to get down into position. And then once it came time to fire, yeah, very comfortable into the shoulder, easy to take the shots, very stable. And I should point out that with the suppressor, yeah, it was a little bit muzzle heavy. So, you know, as we're continuing to fire on these hogs that are coming across our field of view, it did get a little heavy after a little bit, but overall, yeah, it was just a dream to shoot. Let's talk about the build that we have here and some of the individual parts and what I thought about it. You guys may have seen some of the videos already on what we've put together and maybe why I chose some of these parts, and I really want to double down on some of these and maybe back off of some of them a little bit. Now, first off, the mechanicals. What we're dealing with here, this is a 223 barrel. This is a 5.56 chamber, actually, 1 in 7 twist. And up here we have an ATI Strike Force handguard. This is very lightweight, and you can see that it is quite long as well. This is a 15-incher up here. This meant that I could grab the rifle any way that I wanted. If I wanted to do thumb over bore, if I wanted to, you know, grab the traditional way, comfortable either way, and I can choose whatever hand position I want, especially as I change balance, perhaps removing certain parts on here. Moving back, some of the other ATI furniture, we do have the ATI Tact Light buttstock back here. This is collapsible, 6-position, extremely lightweight, and very comfortable into the shoulder as well. This is the ATI X2 Hand Grip right here. And this, as you can see, it has kind of a humpback so that it fits a lot more like a pistol grip into the hand. It doesn't feel like your traditional AR grip. You just have a little bit more contact all around, and that's something that I really like in a rifle. It does make the safety actuation a little bit more difficult. It's easy to get over to fire, but it's a little bit weird getting it back over to safe. That's just something to think about if you are looking at this grip. Maybe an ambi selector might be a good choice for you, so you can use your trigger finger instead. But overall, love it. Now, some of the other mechanical bits that I should talk about, pretty much all the parts that really matter on here when it comes to, you know, just accuracy and function, those are all CMMG. So we have that CMMG barrel, which is actually quite lightweight. It's cut out a lot like maybe an M4 type barrel. It's pretty thin under the handguard. Despite that, it is actually very accurate, and I'll show you a target here in a second. But the bolt is also CMMG, and then the lower receiver is CMMG as well. Up here, this is an Anderson upper receiver, and all the parts have functioned just wonderfully. CMMG charging latch right here. This is one of their nice kind of extended wing ones, which I really wanted for a rifle that I could take out and actually get work done with. It's just nice to have something that's easier to grab, easier to manipulate, and I can manipulate with both hands. Really cool little thing right there. Now, some of the other parts that you see on here, the trigger, this is a Rise. This is the RA140 SST trigger, and this is one where I actually did have some difficulties, and I want to talk about this for a bit. I'm going to do a full review on the trigger because I am a big fan, but we did have some difficulties on this outing. The trigger, when I got it actually in its initial packaging, it worked just fine. You know, I'd take the little trigger assembly out and then try the pull, and it has a very, very crisp pull. It has a very tiny over travel. This really does feel a lot like your, you know, a really good 3-gun trigger. It's actually single stage, not 2, and only a 3.5 pound pull. Fantastic trigger. But since it is so finely tuned, if you do have some kind of incompatibility in your lower receiver, like it turned out that I did just a little bit, the trigger won't actually reset all by itself. This is a very rare phenomenon, but it did happen to me. And the guys from Rise, they actually live kind of down the street from me, and I went and I took the rifle to them and had them check it out. And yeah, it looks like there's just something in my receiver, in the configuration of the pins or something, that is kind of putting a little bit of extra friction into that drop-in trigger, and so it's not getting quite enough push or pull from the trigger reset spring to make the trigger go all the way forward. So as I was doing this hunt, actually, about 1 in every 3 to 4 shots, I was actually having to push the trigger forward with my finger to get the shot off. Now, for you guys that are looking for these, you're probably not going to have this issue at all. They said that, you know, at worst, this happens about once every 100, where there is an incompatibility between this high-strung trigger and the receiver itself. But for the most part, yeah, really, you guys don't have to worry about it. If you do want to make sure that you have one that's 100% reliable, there is the LE145, so this takes the same awesomeness and then just bumps up that trigger reset spring tension, so you're getting a 4.5 pound pull instead of 3.5. Now the Rise guys, for me, they did actually tune up this trigger a little bit. If you have a problem, they can, you know, either tune yours up or they can swap it out. It's actually a pretty easy fix. Takes just about a minute or two, and yeah, they got me running right here, and this is back up to 100%. I still very highly recommend this trigger, and like I said, I'll do a full review on this a little later. Some of the other things, all right, the Amend 2 magazine, which is quite attractive. It has the wonderful flat dark earth coloration that matches all the rest of the furniture here. These function flawlessly in the two 223 rifles that we had. We were just swapping mags and ammo between us. We were actually shooting some 75 grain boat tail hollow points, and we were just basically tossing mags between us, and they worked great. 100% function, didn't have any problems whatsoever. And while we're actually kind of talking about the functionality of this, I should point out one cast member that people just don't really talk about all that much. Triggers are, you know, sexy to talk about, and furniture and all that. But one thing that you have to really keep in mind when we have a machine like this, you want to keep running well, is maybe this right here. This is Modern Spartan Systems. I use their accuracy oil all through this build. So I have it in the whole bolt carrier group. I have it actually down the barrel as well. Supposedly this oil will actually help increase your accuracy over time. You take a couple shots, put some of this down it, take another couple shots, put more down the barrel, and then supposedly it kind of goes into the pores and kind of makes the barrel work more consistently. I'll be testing this myself in this rifle. We'll see how it does. But overall, tell you what, I'll be right back. Let's talk about accuracy. This is one of the first groups that I ever shot with this. So this barrel is not even broken in yet. It does have some of that Modern Spartan accuracy oil, or Modern Spartan Systems, accuracy oil down the barrel, but you're looking at a 1 MOA group with 75 grain boat tail hollow point ammo that is not even optimized for this rifle. This is actually a load that I cooked up for my Rock River. My Rock River loves it. It's about a 3/4 MOA group through that gun. At least it used to be. I don't know, it might be a little clapped out by now. But I think that this could easily be a 3/4 MOA to half MOA gun if I really do my work. This is, you know, a functional rifle. I want it to be available for hunting and for self-defense and that kind of thing. So I'm not, you know, all that concerned about grouping that tightly, but it sure is nice to know that the whole thing can handle it. I am just floored by the performance of this rifle, especially with the trigger tweaked out. This is going to run like a sewing machine, and it's going to perform very, very precisely. So some of the other parts that we have on here, this is a YHM titanium silencer. This was quite nice for me because I don't like to blow my ears out even when I'm hunting. And the optics, I talked a bit about some of the sighting systems that I want to use this rifle as a platform for. I want to test various ideas, including some very nice iron sights right here. These are Ultradyne C4 sights, which I've also tested on the CMMG Banshee. So I've got those at front and at the rear. These are really cool. They kind of step away from the AR-15 sort of sight, and they allow you to do some wind or some drop compensation using a little cam here on the side. And then they also have apertures that you look through, front and back. So you're actually seeing through the sights to the target, and you don't have like a post or anything you have to worry about. Basically, if you see this kind of dark ring around your target, you just pull the trigger, you hit it, and it's a great 2 eyes open solution. The scope that I tested out, I know that we've talked about doing red dot sights on this and about doing that forward mounted scope, kind of like the Scout configuration that Jeff Cooper talked about. We're going to do that, but for this trip, I went ahead and took out the tried and true Falcon S8i. This is a 1-to-8 power mil hash reticle scope. This is in the second focal plane. Wonderful, wonderful scope. I've tested this in some kind of quick fire tests before, and one of the reasons why I was one of the last ones to shoot is that I brought the rifle up to my face and I suddenly realized I was on 1X, and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta twist this thing up. I didn't have time. That's when the bullets started flying, so I left it on 1X, and actually it worked great at 1X at about 120 and then ranging out to 150, 175 yards. Great little scope, highly recommended. It tracks perfectly well. The reticle is really cool, and it's illuminated if you are shooting around those dusk hours. For carriage, getting this rifle into position, I did use this right here. This is a GrovTech. This is a 2-point sling, and it has a quick little loop that you can grab right here if you need to be able to change your length. For instance, if you have one length for just carriage while you're actually walking out, going to actually scout out your pig or whatever, you can set that, and then maybe when you get into shooting position, you can loosen it up or tighten it or whatever. And it has these nice little QD attachment points right here. Or if you need to break the whole thing away, you also do have the little plastic buckle if you just need to pop this off real quick. And this was actually very comfortable to use. The only thing that I might say about this is since it is a steel kind of ladder lock attachment right here, both of these appear to be some kind of steel. They can kind of chew up the finish on your rifle a little bit. I think it'd be kind of cool if they just put a little plastic dip on it. I'll go ahead and shoot that out to those guys, maybe recommend that, just to protect the finish. I don't really care that much about the appearance of this gun. This is one that's made for function, but I know some of you are going to have something a little prettier, and maybe that won't work out so well. But I'll pitch that to them. Great little sling. Now, one controversial item that we really need to talk about is the chambering and the type of ammunition that I used. There are lots of folks that do hog hunting with 223. 223 should be plenty within, especially these kinds of ranges, about 100 yards, 150 yards, even out to 200 yards. There should be just plenty of energy to be able to take down a hog, and probably even a little bit further. They are kind of a thinner skinned animal. They're not all that tough, except that they kind of are internally. Hogs are just, oh my gosh, they are tough. It's like trying to stop a tank sometimes. When we started shooting, and these are the actual bullets that we were using, this is another one of those Amen 2 magazines. We were shooting those 75 grain boat tail hollow points out of there. My buddy Cole was shooting 458 SOCOM. The landowner was shooting 7mm Magnum. One of those two guys took down that biggest sow, probably about 300 plus pounds. Took her down with one shot, not a step taken. But the other ones, I gotta say, they died hard. Oh my gosh. These, even though these should, on paper, have plenty of energy for getting this done, there is a problem with these bullets. The boat tail hollow point design is designed to tumble. It is going to become unstable very quickly once it strikes a target. And, I can kind of back this up in some of the kind of informal shooting that I've done before. Once it hits something, it wants to go butt first. It wants to kind of do an endo, which can make quite a mess inside game. But I gotta say, even go out, check out the Ballistics Test, see what these bullets can do. Like the 77 grain Match Kings perform very similarly. They do have increased lethality over M193 or M855, but these right here, even though it is better than that, it's still not that great. I'm wanting something that's going to, hit a hog and take it down. I don't want to have to keep firing at it or chase it down into the brush, as we ended up actually having to do. So Billy and I, once we started firing at those as I started running, we started running toward where they were pulling an L and kind of, flanking around us on the left side. They were actually running back up the hill that we had just come down. So we go taking off into the brush, and once we start getting into the thick stuff, we started slowing down because we knew at any second, if one of these that had maybe been wounded might come straight at us. And so little by little, we did find two pretty darn big sows. They weren't as big as that first one. They were definitely in the 200s. But yeah, they did not want to come along easily. And one of them charged one of us. I won't say who, because that person's wife might get angry. But we put... Okay, it was Billy. Billy fired 10 rounds straight into the face of one that was coming straight at him. And that did take care of that hog. And the one that I tracked down a little bit over to the side, I ended up putting her down with 2 shots to the back of the head. She had kind of shoved herself down under some thorns to try to hide. And once she heard me coming, she started scooting to back up and come get me. And so I popped a couple of these in the back of her head, and that was the end of that. But still, even with those, that was a pretty freaky situation. Next time I come into this, I'm definitely going to want a different bullet. And I'm looking at the 75 grain spear, what do they call them? The gold dot bullets, the new rifle gold dot bullets. I have tested these in 6.5 Creedmoor. Love these bullets. They are very efficient through the air. They have a very good ballistic coefficient, but they're a bonded bullet, and they are made to mushroom, to really open up and to dump all that energy inside the animal. So I want to get some of the 75 grainers next time I do a hog hunt and use those instead. I think it's going to be much, much preferable, because I don't really think that the problem that we had was with putting energy on the target. I think the problem was keeping the energy in the target. These should be hitting plenty hard enough. If we get it in the boiler room, it's going to take the animal down. But these, even with that kind of enhanced tumbling damage that they're dealing out, they're still exiting the animal. They're still coming out, probably butt first, out the other side of the animal, and that's just wasted energy. We want to be able to put all of it inside the hog if we possibly can. So you guys, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, stay tuned. We're going to perform more tests with this rifle. Hopefully we'll do some more hog hunting here in the future, and I'll be able to tell you how it all came out. We might actually do a caliber swap on this. Maybe we'll get away from 223 and we'll step into something like 6.5 Grendel, which I know is going to put more energy into game. But then sticking with 223 on this for a while, we're going to see how this performs in some kind of speed challenges, and swapping out different kinds of optics to see which one gets on target quickest, which one can hit multiple targets, which one can deal with targets at multiple distances the best, because I'm just curious. I want to know how good iron sights are compared to a red dot, compared to your typical LPVO back here, low power variable optic, or a low power variable optic set up front over here like Jeff Cooper talked about. We're going to try all of it. We're going to see how it goes. So yeah, I will see you guys around. Thank you to patrons of the Destructive Arts for making videos like these possible, for keeping the lights on, and coming up with great ideas and suggestions for new videos and new directions that we can head in. If anybody else wants to chip in $1 or $2 a month to keep these videos coming, I'll put a link to Patreon around here. And one last thing, thank you to Sportsman's Guide at the 338 Lapua Magnum level on Patreon, and to Peter at 300 Win Mag. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. And hey, this is actually a Sportsman's Guide gear layer right here, so you got to check out some of the ones they have out there. I've been a big fan of these for a long time. So yeah, I'll see you guys around. Hopefully see you next hunt.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These 2 videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So, you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos. just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.